Welcome to the Software Test Professionals Conference Keynote Series. In this video, we will hear from international speaker and trainer Damian Synadinos, owner of Ineffable Solutions. Damian will deliver his keynote recorded on April 11th, 2018 in Newport Beach, California, entitled More Than That. Let's join Mike Lyles as he is introducing Damian.
So our keynote speaker today is Damian Synadinos. He is a consultant and owner of a company called Ineffable Solutions. I met Damian a long time ago. He's a stand-up comedian and improv guy. To hear him speak, you're always entertained. And I think you're really going to enjoy hearing what he has to talk about today. So let's give a big hand for Damian Synadinos.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. I keep it going for Mr. Mike Lyles, the Mike Lyles. If you've never heard Michael speak, you're missing out. If you were to mash up Michael Bublé with Stephen Hawking and maybe a little Jeff Foxworthy, that's Michael. He's smooth, he's smart, he's funny. Mike is a fantastic speaker. How many people got to see Testing Like a Kid? All right, a lot of hands. You're the lucky ones. Was it good? Oh, yeah. See, I didn't see anyone shaking their head, Mike. You're all right. It was a great talk because Mike is a great speaker. Mike's talk was all about thinking about the assumptions and the limitations that evolve as you grow and become an adult, and abandoning those and starting to think and act like a kid when you test. It's about challenging the idea that this is the way it's always been done and coming up with new ways to expand your own self. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that myself today. This talk is called More Than That. I'm going to challenge the idea that this is all that I am. This is all that you are. And we're going to talk about how you might expand and see your full potential. I'm going to start by telling a personal, true story. A lot of the things that I talk about today, a lot of the subjects and topics are going to be exemplified in this story, and I'll return to it several times. But mostly I'm telling it because it was a major source of inspiration for this very talk. Now, a little background. I've been testing since 1993. For those that are pulling out calculators, that's 25 years. Started testing at CompuServe. Anyone ever heard of CompuServe? Read about it in your history books, maybe? I started testing in the QA department at CompuServe at 19 years old. Since then, I've been at 15 companies all in around Central Ohio. I've been at finance, insurance, retail, airline, education, e-commerce. During that time, I've been at companies 30 people large and 30,000 people. I've been in a lot of different roles, had a lot of different responsibilities, a lot of different titles. I've worked as a consultant and a contractor. I've worked as full-time. I've worked with onshore and offshore teams. Went through a lot of different tools and methodologies and approaches to testing. So I have a lot of testing experience. So about 9 months ago, I was working with a consultancy, and they got to know me and a little bit more about me and what I'm able and capable of doing. And they said, hey, Damian, we have a client that we work with, and they have an opportunity, but we don't do this type of work, so we're wondering if you might be interested in it. I said, well, I don't know. Tell me about the opportunity. They said, well, it's a commercial realty company, and they've recently gone through a merger, so a clash of processes and procedures and cultures, and there's some turmoil, and they want somebody to come in and help analyze their business processes, look at them, understand them, help improve their business processes, and document the entire thing. I said, sure. Throw my hat in the ring, give them my resume, send them my contact information. I can always say no. A few days later, I got a call from the client, from the hiring manager, let's call him Mike. And Mike said, hey, Damian, I've had a chance to look at your website. I've read your blog. I've read through your resume. And it looks great. I'm interested in pursuing this further, but I do have a big concern. He says, my question is, do you think that you can do this job? He says, because after looking at your experience and your resume, it looks to me like you are just a tester. Ouch. Now, I'm very proud of being a tester. I didn't do it for 25 years because I don't like it. I enjoy being a tester. I think I'm good at it. But the way he phrased it, just a tester, didn't sit right with me. It made me feel uneasy. It made me feel inadequate. I didn't like it. And it made me pause. And that sentence just kind of hung in the air for a moment, just a tester. And then in a moment of inspiration, I came up with this answer. I said, Mike, what if I told you that for 25 years, I've been learning and developing certain skills and abilities, and I've been honing them and refining them. Skills like process analysis, looking at processes and understanding how they work. Process improvement, finding holes and gaps and inefficiencies in these processes and suggesting improvements. And process documentation, writing down all the things that I learned about how processes work so they can be kept for archival purposes and many others. I said, the only thing is, I've been doing that in a testing context. I've been doing test process analysis, test process improvement, test process documentation. So to answer your question, all you're asking me to do is really change context from testing to a business. I think I can do this. So he laughed and hung up the phone. No, that didn't happen. He liked the answer. He liked the answer, and I got the job. And the epilogue is, I think it went very well. I thought I brought value, unexpected value, to this particular job in ways that I did not know things that I didn't know I had in me. Now again, I tell this story because I think it exemplifies a lot of the themes that I'll talk about, and it was a major source of inspiration. I'm going to talk about today unjusting yourself. What are labels anyway? What are the labels that we put on ourselves? How can they help us? How can they be limiting? I'm going to talk about anxiety, how labels might cause anxiety, what you can do about it. And then I'll talk about rediscovering who you are right now, the as-is picture of who you are. And then looking at who you might be, your potential. Now, if you look down on your table, you probably have some hello stickers. Everybody look down, you probably have some pens. I want everybody to grab 2 of those stickers. Be careful because they kind of stick together a little bit. Make sure you get 2 each. Grab a pen. And on the first sticker, I'd like you to write your name. So far, so good. Easy. I'd like you to write your job title at your current company and your current company name. If you don't have a current company, if you're between current companies, write your last company, your last job title. Just take a moment to write your name, your job title, and your company. And we'll come back and revisit these stickers in a moment. But what I'd like to do right now is I'd like to get to know some of you. So while you're writing, I'm glancing around the room at someone I'd like to ask some questions. I just made eye contact with. That's right, in the red shirt right there. You're hoping I was pointing to somebody behind you. Oh, I'm sorry. Sir, what's your name? Yeah, mouthful of food. This is just like every waiter at every restaurant. How's the food, sir? Chris. Everyone say hello, Chris. Hello, Chris. Very nice. Chris, are you enjoying the conference? Absolutely. Good. Have you been to any great sessions so far? Oh, okay. I'll pause there. Tell me, what session did you enjoy so far? Who did that? Do you remember the name? What's that? Her name is Mace. Mace, are you in here? There. Hey, there you go. Some unsolicited positive feedback for you right there. Excellent. So good. I hope you're enjoying the conference. Where are you from, Chris?
California, originally Boston.
Boston. Okay, Boston, California. Boston, is it Beantown, right? That's right, baby.
Tom Brady.
Tom Brady, there you go. The Pats. Yeah, I've heard of that team, that guy. All right. So besides beans, is Boston known for anything else? Why Beantown? Do you know? What's the story there? Okay, so it comes from a certain type of food they serve there. All right, what else about Boston is cool? Tell me something else interesting about Boston.
Red
Sox? All right, so you're a sports fan? All right. You got any rivals? Yankees, all right. Anybody here from New York? All right. There we go, back there. What's your name? Tolly. Everyone say hello, Tolly. Hello. So you're in Jersey?
I used to be in Jersey. I just moved here out here last week.
Okay, so you moved here. Where here?
In Rancho Cucamonga.
Is that the name of a real place, Rancho Cucamonga? I am envious. I want to live in a place called Rancho Cucamonga. That's awesome. Tell me something interesting about Rancho Cucamonga.
It seems like it's fairly new work than a lot of the other towns in Southern California.
So it's a newer town. So when I think Rancho Cucamonga, I think newer. All right, right on. Welcome, thank you. Any locals here? Anyone from Newport Beach? There, we got one hand back there, welcome. You know, what's with their city forefathers? It didn't seem like they were very creative coming up with this town name. You know, we got the old port over there, and it's on a beach. What should we name our new settlement? So tell me something about Newport Beach that I don't know. That's what I thought. So we've got Beantown, we've got Newer, Cucamonga, and we've got, well, for one thing, STPCon's here. What's your name? Chris, another Chris. Everyone say hello, Chris. Hello. Great, you're getting good at this. So Boston, Rancho Cucamonga, a local from Newport Beach. I am from Columbus, Ohio. Now, I always have to put the comma, Ohio, because if I tell people as I travel around, I'm from Columbus, I get blank stares. So I have to say Columbus, Ohio. And they go, ah, and then the blank stare is a little less. But It's unfortunate because most people don't know much about Columbus. And if they have heard of Columbus, they might have heard one of the nicknames of Columbus. Columbus is sometimes called Cap City because it's the capital city of Ohio. Columbus is also referred to as Arch City. 100 years ago, there was arches that ran the length of a major thoroughfare. It carried electricity up and down, and it got a nickname called Arch City. So if I tell somebody I'm from Columbus and they go, oh, Arch City, I'm like, it doesn't really tell you much about the town. Columbus is called Crossroads of Ohio because it connects Cincinnati and Cleveland. It's right in the middle. I didn't have to say comma Ohio, Cincinnati, comma Ohio, Cleveland, because you know Cleveland and Cincinnati. Columbus is not that well known. It's sometimes called Cowtown, which I think is more of an insult, I think, than an actual nickname. But there's actually a lot more to Columbus that you might not know about. Columbus has 800,000 people. That's more than Cincinnati and Cleveland combined. And the population of Columbus is very, very diverse. It's sometimes called Test Market USA. A lot of retail and food companies will come and test market new products and service offerings in Columbus because the makeup of Columbus and the way it plays in Columbus is likely how it'll play in the rest of the United States. Columbus has a world-class zoo. We're home to the Ohio State Buckeyes at The Ohio State University. The Ohio State, what's that? I-O, there we go. We got a Buckeye back there. Proper response. Ohio Stadium holds 105,000 people. That's the third biggest stadium in the United States, fourth biggest in the entire world. Columbus, this might be surprising, is a fashion center. You wouldn't think about it, but after New York and LA, Columbus has the most fashion designers and companies like DSW, Designer Shoe Warehouse, Abercrombie & Fitch, Victoria's Secret. Columbus is a fashion center. It's much, much more than just being a crossroads of Ohio, or a capital city, or a city with some electric arches. So if cities can be more than that, if Boston can be more than just a bean town, and if Rancho Cucamonga can be more than just a new town, what else can be more than that? What about this conference? Here we are at STPCon, Software Test Professionals Conference. Now I'm curious, how many non-testers do we have in the room? Anybody that doesn't primarily wear a hat? Okay, just a handful. You, sir, what's your name? Nathan. Everyone say hello, Nathan. Hello. Very good. Nathan, what is your job?
I'm a development lead.
Get him. All right, good answer. So here we have Nathan, the development lead at a Software Test Professionals Conference. Why might that be? I would suggest it's because the name or label of this conference, Software Test Professionals, doesn't fully describe what this conference is. Certainly there's a lot of content about testing. Certainly there's a lot of testers here, content for and about testers and from testers, but it also has a lot of content that's not about testing. For example, Henrik Anderson and Leo Heppes gave a workshop a couple days ago. Anybody here attend that? Okay, getting on the same page. They say that testers can help with estimation and backlog grooming and planning and coffee maker think tasks. I don't even know what that is, but they don't sound like things that you might think about when you say testing. The keynote tomorrow by Simon Stewart is all about testers providing value throughout the entire life cycle of the software development process, focused on risk. Maybe things that aren't necessarily testing, provided value that's not testing. Paul Grisaffi, right after this keynote, is going to be giving a talk, tongue twister of a title called Expect to Inspect, right? Is that the name of your talk? Right, and in the abstract it says, breaking news, automation development is software development. So he's going to talk about how automation development is very much like software development. You should adhere to the same principles and ideals, but that content would also be very useful to non-testers and non-software automation developers. And a shameless plug, I'm giving a talk tomorrow called Talking About Talking, which is me sharing my experiences and lessons learned about being a professional speaker. And it's for people to share the why, the what, and the how in their own experiences about talking. That will certainly help testers that are interested in becoming professional speakers, but it's not about testing. So this conference for professional testers of software, some call it ConPTS, is not just for software testers. It's for a lot more. It's a lot more than that. So cities can be more than that. Conferences can be more than that. What else? What about people? Hello. I am Damian Synadinos. I'm a speaker, and I'm from Ineffable Solutions. Everyone at your table, you probably have a label that looks very much like this one. Now, this is what I do. This is my profession, but this is not who I am. I've already told you I'm also a tester. Spent 25 years testing, so I like to think that I'm also a tester as well. That's not all that I am. I'm also a mentor. I've spent much of my career as a trusted advisor, helping people with their career choices and their testing. I'm also a conference organizer. Back in Columbus, Ohio, I helped organize the QA or the Highway Testing Conference. So I've been doing that for about 5 years. I'm an artist. Now, I don't get to draw much anymore except for to entertain my family and friends and do slide decks, but I've been drawing since I was a child. I'm an improviser. I have over 10 years of improv experience. You ever seen the show Whose Line Is It Anyway? I do that on stage. I'm also an actor. The improv got me into acting. Some of the people that were in my improv group also were playwrights, and they cast me in a few shows. So I started acting for different directors that do national and local plays. That made me wonder, can I do this myself? And I wrote a play. This play has been produced in New York and Pittsburgh. I'm also an author. I have a kid's book that I wrote. It's coming out pretty soon. Watch for it. It's a kid's book teaching kids the improvisational principles. I'm a son. I have a father and a mother, as most of you do. I'm a brother. I'm an older brother. Any older brothers out there? Woo! That's right. I'm a husband. I got married 12 years ago. To be fair, yeah, it's probably more accurate to say I'm a divorcee. Unfortunately, sorry. Sad story there. Didn't work out so well, so that's probably a more accurate label. But happy news, I'm a husband again. I got married again 8 years ago, so this one worked out well. That's right. The practice marriage actually was beneficial. That led me to be a father. Not just once, but twice. I am a father. I have Alina, who's 6, and Zachary, who's 4, and they are the love of my life. They're little adorable time sinks. I'm a golfer. Any golfers in here? Good. I'm also a bowler. Now, it's probably more accurate to say I'm someone that golfs and someone that bowls, rather than I'm a golfer or a bowler. I'm a rounder. Anybody know what that is? Poker player. Fancy word for poker player. I'm a gamer. Any gamers in here? I started on a TRS-80 color computer, and I still game today. I love gaming. I'm confident. Right now, I'm feeling very confident about how this is going. I'm also terribly nervous. I am very, very nervous, as any public speaker should be. They should be somewhat nervous. And a word to describe someone that's both confident and nervous is ambivert. That's somebody that displays characteristics of extroversion and introversion. I am curious. I'm constantly reading and learning new things and finding out what I can learn. I'm passionate. I hope you get that already. I'm very passionate about what I do. I'm dependable. At least I like to think that I'm dependable. I like to think that people can count on me for different things.
Hang on. I think self-indulgent is a pretty good one.
Okay. Thank you, Mike. Yes, sometimes people can label you, and you might not like the labels they put on you. Thank you, Mike. Okay, I get the point. We'll move on from this section. The point is, every single one of these labels is absolutely true. Every one of these accurately describes some part of who I am. But no single label by itself is holistically true. If you only look at me through one of these labels, it's like seeing Damian through a keyhole. And that's limiting. It's restricting. This idea makes me think of a very famous parable. It's an old Indian parable. It's about the 6 blind men and the elephant. Now, for those unfamiliar, here's how the parable goes. There's this elephant, and there's 6 blind guys, and they can't see the elephant. Not only that, they've never encountered an elephant. They don't even have the concept of what an elephant is. So they approach the elephant for the first time, and they start touching it in different areas to better understand what the elephant is. And one touches the trunk, and one touches the tusk, and one touches the tail, and one touches the side and the ear. And afterwards, they all collect, and they say, hey, what is an elephant? And one guy says, well, an elephant is very much like a snake, says the guy that touched the trunk. Another says, you're wrong, says the guy that touched the side of the elephant. An elephant is much like a wall. And another guy says, no, you're all wrong. An elephant is like a spear, says the man that touched the tusk. And they argue about whether it's like a fan or a piece of rope or a tree trunk. Once again, all of these guys was actually completely correct, but not holistically correct. They were seeing an elephant through only one aspect, only through one label, which can be a dangerous thing. If you're only seeing yourself through one label at a time, it can be limiting. You're not getting a holistic view. This also makes me think of another personal story. I have a nephew named Peter, and sometimes I draw pictures for my nieces and nephews just to entertain them. And he came to me one day and said, hey, Uncle Damian, would you draw me a picture? I said, sure, what would you like? And he said, draw me a robot. I said, all right, I can draw you a robot. He said, wait, no. Actually, I want you to draw me a pirate, please. I said, all right, Peter, I'll draw you a pirate. He said, no, actually, I think I want a pig. Can you draw me a pig? All right, Peter, I'll draw you a pig. He said, no, actually, I do want a robot. No, actually, I do want a pirate. No, I want a pig. No, I want a robot. I want a pirate. I want a pig. And this is how young nephews do. And I finally said, stop, and I drew him this. A robot pirate pig. Now, he loved the picture, but I also use this story to remind myself that when I'm looking in the mirror, do I see myself as a robot, a pirate, a pig? Do I see myself as only a son or a father or a bowler or as someone that's just curious or just a tester? Or do I see myself more holistically? So this idea brings me to one of my favorite quotes from this guy. Sorry, there he is. Everyone say hello, Soren. Soren Kierkegaard, Danish philosopher from the 1800s. He said, "Once you label me, you negate me." Now, my interpretation of this particular quote is that labels can explicitly give and bestow things, but they can also implicitly take. In other words, if someone labels me or I label myself one particular thing, it explicitly says, I am this, but it also implies that I might not be other things as well, and that might not be true. So while labels can explicitly give, they can implicitly take. Now, I'm not against labels. Labels are neither good nor bad. There's nothing inherently evil or good about labels. Labels are necessary. We need them. We use them all the time to help us communicate. They help us categorize, they help us describe things, they help us classify and organize things. Every word that I'm saying right now is a label. This is why dictionaries exist. Every word represents a much larger idea. So we can't function without labels. They're very helpful. But labels can also be harmful and sometimes even dangerous when labels are used to restrict, to limit, to form unfair stereotypes. So labels can be very harmful. Now, again, I ask you to think about the labels that you put upon yourself. Are you using them to help better classify, describe yourself to others? When others label you, is it so that they can explicitly understand who you are? Or is it implicitly taking away and saying, well, if they're a tester, then they must not be these other things? This is one particular label that's a little bit devious, the word just. Now, it's a very common word. In fact, in 2011, they did a study of the Oxford English corpus. 2 billion words they analyzed and found out that just, the word just, was the 57th most common word in the English language. Perhaps it's that common because it's very versatile. Just can mean a lot of different things depending on how you use it. Just can mean, for example, as an adjective, it's morally right, good, or fair. Letting me keynote was a just decision. Thank you very much. As an adverb, nearby, the keynote is just over there. It can also mean recently, I just saw the keynote. Previously or exactly, the keynote was just what I needed. All right. Quite, very, really, as emphasis, the keynote was just wonderful. Why, thank you very much. Possibly, perhaps, the keynote just might help. Well, I'm glad to hear that. There's another meaning of just, though, and that's this one. Only, simply, merely. The keynote was just okay. I hope no one leaving saying that. This is just, merely, only, without any other reason, any other purpose. This is a way that you can use just in a limiting fashion, a label in a dangerous, potentially harmful way. Now, back to my story that I told earlier. When that gentleman called me and said, you are just a tester, that was an example of someone using the word just to mean only, merely, simply. You have no other function, no other purpose except for being a tester. And I proposed that maybe I do have value. Maybe I'm more than just a tester. So, anxiety, let's talk about it. When this person told me just a tester, it made me feel anxious. And then when I accepted the job, that anxiety didn't go away, it only increased. I thought, well, what if he's right? What if I am just a tester? I've just accepted a job with a commercial realty company to do business process improvement analysis, and I think that I've reasoned through it, and this is something I should be able to do, but what if he's right? What if I am just a tester? Now, anxiety can affect all of us. Who here has ever felt scared? Okay, not every hand went up, and I can only assume those that did not raise their hand were afraid, right? Now, I just used the word fear and afraid with anxiety. I'm using them interchangeably, but that's not fair because there is a subtle difference. Fear is about certainty. It's about a known imminent present danger, something that you're aware of. It's objective. Now, the results of that mean a tight stomach, sweaty palms, sweating, tight throat. The results of anxiety can be very similar, all the same symptoms. But anxiety is about something that is uncertain. Worrying about something with an uncertain outcome. Anxiety is about uncertainty, and it's about our thoughts and perceptions. Oxford English Dictionary offers a second definition, desire for something to happen or to do something. Now, this is interesting because if you look at it, anxiety can be worrying about something that's uncertain, but anxiety can also be desire for something that's uncertain. It's almost paradoxical that you can be worried about something while also wanting that same thing. Now, on the next slide, Kierkegaard again calls this the dizziness of anxiety. He calls anxiety the dizziness of freedom. And he uses a metaphor of someone standing on a cliff or a high building and looking over the edge, and they feel anxiety. They feel dread that they might fall off the edge, but they also feel exhilaration at the fact that they are free to choose whether to jump or stay put. It's this simultaneous feeling of dread and desire that is anxiety. Jean-Paul Sartre, another existentialist, says that when you realize that you must define yourself, it can make you feel dizzy. When you realize that you need to label yourself and figure out who you are, and you get paralyzed by possibility, all the things that you're free to become, all the potential that's within you, it can make you shut down. Now, fortunately, Kierkegaard offers a solution to this. While anxiety can make you flee and run, Kierkegaard also says that anxiety can become a serving spirit that against its will leads you where you wish to go. When you feel anxiety, if you recognize that it's about uncertainty, things that may happen, but they also might not happen, you can actually reason through it and say, well, wait a second. I'm not afraid because it's not objective. I don't know that this thing is going to happen. And instead of fleeing or shutting down, I can face anxiety, and I can do something about it and try this thing that I'm feeling anxious about that I might not have otherwise done. So he suggests that anxiety itself can be a driving force. Now, people all over suggest confronting your fears, facing anxiety. There's lots and lots of blog posts and people that have different pieces of advice. One that's hot off the presses comes from this guy, Kent Beck, creator of extreme programming. Last month, he put out a post called Publish Everything, parentheses, pretty much. And in that post, he suggests that people should just get their thoughts out there. Publish, publish, publish. Lower your bar because you need to get your message to readers. He says that the times I've avoided publishing, it has been because of a fear of rejection or a fear of judgment. Now, I think he probably should have used the word anxiety because fear means he knew he was going to be judged or knew he was going to be rejected, and that's not the case. He thought he might, and that's more along the lines of anxiety. However, the point is that if he did not publish, he would have kept a message from his readers. He says that every time I did publish, I was able to overcome my fears. He overcame his anxiety. Now, some of you might be thinking, listen, I'm already 24 years old. I know who I am. I have my path set. There's no changing it. I don't need any of this. Some of you may be thinking, I'm 64 years old. It's too late for me. For both of you, I say poppycock. It's never too late to start. This is an infographic from Anna Vital. She owns a company called Idioma, and they do infographics. This particular one, what they did was analyze the biographies of the founders of the top 100 companies on Forbes' world's biggest company list. They looked at all these different founders, and this is far too small. I don't expect you to read it, but I encourage you to look it up because it's interactive and fantastic. Now, the purpose of this particular infographic was to talk about societal expectations about when people should succeed and when they should start these new endeavors. And this shows that it's never too late. Sam Walton founded Walmart at 60 years old. It's never too late to start. So that's the purpose of this infographic. I take away something else from it as well. I would also suspect that many of these founders likely faced anxiety. Starting new companies, founding new companies is no small task. And you don't know that you're going to fail. You probably face anxiety that you might, but they did it anyway. So something I take from this information, all these different founders that did these different things, is that they were able to face anxiety, and that's inspirational to me, that I might be able to do the same. Okay? So what? So who cares? One thing this talk is not about is quitting testing. It would be foolish of me to come to a software test professionals conference and say, stop testing. You're more than that. Go do something else. That's not what this talk is about. What this talk is about is gaining a deeper understanding of who you are, finding out your strengths and weaknesses, connecting the dots, finding out who you can be, realizing your full potential. It's about unjusting yourself. Consider the labels that you put on yourself. They explicitly describe you to others, but do they implicitly say things about you that you don't want them to say? Think about how you might be able to use anxiety and confront it and use it as a driving force. Realize that anxiety is about uncertainty and its simultaneous dread and desire to do something and let it drive you. And recognize that it's never too late, but don't wait to do this activity of re-understanding who you are and putting labels on yourself. Remember, you are more than that. Thank you. I'm not done. I'm not done. That's the halfway mark. Okay, so now what? So now what? Maybe you're on board and you say, okay, I'm going to be careful about the labels I put on myself, and I'm going to watch the labels I put on others and understand that they explicitly and implicitly mean different things, and I'm going to confront anxiety, and I'm going to try things that I've never tried before. But how do I do it? Well, sadly, this is not an instructional talk. I'm not going to give you step-by-step instructions on how to do this. This talk is intended to be inspirational. It's intended to be motivational. It's intended to encourage you to think about these things and act on those thoughts on your own afterwards. Now, that said, I am going to give you some suggested ideas that might help you as you go about doing that. The first is figuring out what types of labels you should put on yourself. And we're going to talk about as is, what type of labels you put on yourself right now, who you currently are, and then we'll talk about to be, what type of labels you might be as you realize, connect the dots, who you are. What are these different labels? There's lots of different models that you can find that say these are the different things that you should label yourself with. This is one model that I particularly like, and it makes sense to me, so I'll share it with you. You might say that one label you put on yourself are attributes. These are things that you are. Maybe you're empathetic, you're compassionate, you're dependable, you're honest, you have integrity. These are things that are part of who you are. Another label you might put on yourself is knowledge. These are things that you know, you've learned. Maybe you know how to use Jira, or you know how to juggle. Another attribute is skill, things that you do, things that you know how to do. Now, sometimes skill is just applied knowledge or applied attributes. And there's a lot of gray area. Consider the juggling example. You might say that I know how to juggle. I'm aware with how to throw balls in the air and where to put my hands. That might be knowledge that you have. If you apply that knowledge and say, I've practiced and now I am a juggler, I know how to juggle, you might say that that's a skill. And then it might be fair to call yourself a juggler, an attribute. So there's a lot of gray areas. It's not so much about how you label these things, but I think that this model can help you as you walk through this process and think about who you are. So I'd like to do a short demonstration. These are a collection of a few attributes, knowledge, and skills. So take a look at this word cloud up here, this list of terms, and I want you to think about your job right now. If you think that these things are important and you use or possess these particular skills, knowledge, and attributes in your job, I'd like you to stand up, please. All right. I'm happy to see that. That's encouraging. A little slow. I got nervous there at the beginning. All right. You, sir. Hello. What's your name? I'm pointing at you, turning around, trying to dodge me. Gary? Gary with a C. C. Carrie with a C. Everyone say hello, Carrie with a C. Hello, Carrie with a C. Carrie, what do you do?
QA director.
QA director. Pick one of these things and tell me how you believe that one of these things is important to being a QA director.
So many. Self-reliance, but problem solving is probably a good one.
Problem solving. Problem solving is important to being a QA director. How so?
Problems every day, and we have to solve those to keep going.
Absolutely. I agree with that. Everyone agree with that? Sure. Everyone said yes. They nodded. It was a silent agreement. Any non-testers standing right now? There's a handful of you in the room. Over there, your name?
Charlie.
Everyone say hello, Charlie.
Hello, Charlie.
Charlie, what do you do?
I'm a senior developer.
Senior developer. Pick one of these and tell me why it's important to being a senior developer.
I'm going to pick tact, because it's generally best to not be a jackass.
Truer words were never said. Yes, generally good to not be a jackass. Okay. So for all those people standing, I think that we can all agree these are very useful knowledge and skills and attributes to have. You can all have a seat now. Thank you very much. Here's the big reveal. I went on the internet and I searched necessary required skills of a BA. Now, there's lots and lots of different sources. This was pulled from various sources, and these are the ones that were consistent across all the different sources. To be a BA, you must have tact, you must have empathy, you must be able to possess critical thinking skills, you must be able to analyze things because it's in your title, for goodness sakes. You know what else? I went and I looked up necessary required skills of an architect. These are things that you need if you're going to be a successful architect as well. Same thing as a plumber. So again, I didn't come here to tell you to quit testing, but if things fall apart, you can always fall back, all right? Now, clearly, these are very general. These are called transferable attributes, transferable knowledge, transferable skills, things that might apply in one context, but also are very applicable in another. Now, this is a testing context. Again, this is not instructional. I'm not going to delve into the very specific things that you need to know as a tester. As a plumber, certainly you need to know about different sizes and widths of wrenches. And maybe as an architect, you need to know about building codes and zoning, very specific knowledge that's applicable to that particular context. As a tester, if you're interested in learning more about specific skills, attributes, and knowledge, I highly encourage you to look up a talk called Multiplying the Odds by Fiona Charles. I first saw her deliver this at the European Testing Conference. It's wide and it's deep, and it gives a lot of specifics. But I'm not going to get into that today. What I am going to talk about is these transferable skills that can move from one area to another. Whether you know about wrenches and whether you know how to use Jira and whether you know this methodology won't have a greatest impact if you don't know how to negotiate, if you don't know how to cooperate, if you don't have empathy. These are very important traits, attributes, skills, and knowledge that can move around. So when you think about who you are and you're trying to label yourself, think about what attributes and knowledge and skills you have in one area of your life that might actually apply to another. Now, there's a lot of different models, as there are models for identifying attributes, knowledge, and skills that try and exemplify the fact that people are multi-skilled. This is called the T-shaped people, or T-shaped model. Perhaps you're familiar with it. It started way back in the 80s with McKinsey & Company, gained popularity in 2001. But the idea is that the crossbar on the T represents the breadth of someone's skills, their knowledge, their attributes, and the T, the vertical bar, represents some skill or expertise that they're good at. I don't know many people like this. This is a useful metaphor and a model for helping me better visualize what someone might look like, but I don't know anybody that's only good at one thing. Most people look a little bit more like this. This is called pie-shaped people. This came out a few years later. Someone was expanding and building on the T-shaped model, and they said people are more like the shaped pie. They have a lot of interests across the top, and they have two specialties. Well, other people started adding more and more things, more and more vertical bars. Many people are good at many different things. Now, there's a lot of different terms that people use for this. Specialized generalist, generalized specialist, versatilist, jack of all trades, Johnny Factotum. Emily Wapnick has a great TED Talk where she calls this a multi-potentialite. There's a lot of different labels that people put on this. Now, this is a much fuller, richer metaphor, a visualization, if you're trying to think about what you might look like with all your different labels. But it also reminds me of something else. This looks kind of like a comb. A comb-shaped person. Now, this is a much richer metaphor than the T or the pie. I think it looks pretty, and when I'm trying to visualize a person, I think that they might be more like a comb, where each tooth in the comb represents something that they're good at. However, this metaphor is still broken. No one is good equally at all the different things. They're not equally as empathetic as much as they know Jira. So, to fix the metaphor, we're going to, my clicker's dying, we're going to break the comb. Breaking the comb. This, I think, is a very rich metaphor for what people look like. People have all these different attributes, knowledge, and skills, and some of them are strengths, some of them are weaknesses, some of them are missing. They may say, I recognize that communication is important, but I stink at it. I recognize that for this job, I need to know about wrenches, but I don't know about wrenches. Now, everyone's comb is different. Everyone has different strengths and different weaknesses. This is also a useful metaphor if you're putting together a team. Here's the combs of Larry, Mo, and Curly. They have different strengths, different weaknesses, and if you're trying to put together a team for some particular purpose, and you say, here's the different attributes, knowledge, and skills that for this context we think are going to be important. Well, Larry is good at this thing, while Mo is not very good at this thing. And Curly is good at something that the other two are not good at. And if you start to put these together, you can very quickly see where there's gaps and holes in your team. If you say, these are all the important knowledge, skills, and attributes that we need, you slide all your combs together, and you find out, oh, we need to find somebody or train somebody to be better in this tooth that we're missing, or that's too short for our purposes. So I like this metaphor. I think it helps me visualize when I'm thinking about myself and my different labels as a big comb. What are my long teeth and what are my short teeth? Now, another part about recognizing your short teeth is what do you do about it? You might already have some transferable knowledge and skills from another area of your life that you can move. As an example of this, here's this guy, Steve Jobs. Part of the aura and story of Steve Jobs that he went to Reed College briefly, and while he was there, he took a course in calligraphy. Now, he took this course, and then he dropped out of school, and then many years later, I don't know if you knew this, he founded a company called Apple, created a computer called the Apple computer, and while he was creating this computer, he used his knowledge of calligraphy to help design the typesets, the fonts, the serif and sans serifs. And it was the very first personal computer that had beautiful typography. He was telling this story at a 2005 commencement address at Stanford, and he said, whoop, boy, this thing is all over the place. You can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. Now, when he was a student at Reed College taking calligraphy, he couldn't have possibly imagined that this calligraphy knowledge would be any of use to him. However, many years later, it became very valuable. Now, he could not have predicted going forward, but it's very easy to connect the dots looking backwards and say, boy, I had no idea that calligraphy would be this valuable. So again, when you're thinking about the different teeth, the different labels to put on yourself, which teeth do I put in my comb? If you're thinking about some particular context for some purpose, it might be easier to think about this seems important and this one does not. My height, my gender, my religion, those are probably attributes and things about me that don't matter. My knowledge of wrenches probably doesn't matter if I'm applying to be a tester. But you should also be wary. If you take away the context, you never know what's going to be valuable. Do I want to put a tooth in there that says I'm very good at calligraphy? Why? You're applying to be a computer expert. Maybe it will actually be applicable in ways that you don't even expect. All right, to demonstrate this, they asked for improv. This is the improv section of the presentation. Old job, new job. I said I'm an improviser, and I'm going to need some help for this. I'm going to need 3 volunteers for this. That was easy. I didn't even tell you what the game's about. All right, we have 1 volunteer. You should be brave. You should be witty. You should be sharp, fast. You should be willing to potentially make a fool of yourself on stage. The 3rd volunteer is just a timekeeper. You don't need any of those qualities. But come on up here. 2 more volunteers. 1 more back there. 1 more. All right, we have 3 volunteers. Round of applause. Brian, welcome to the stage. It is. The lights are right in your eyes here. Yeah. Hi, you are?
Austin.
Austin. Brian, Austin, and? Menu. Everyone say hello, Brian, Austin, and Menu. Hello. Venu. Yes. Everyone say, scratch that, hello, Venu. Scratch that, hello, Venu. There we go. All right, Brian, Austin, and Venu. Who would like to be the timekeeper? That's the non-performing person. You all want to perform? This is unbelievable. All right, Austin. All right, you got a watch or something? There we go. All right, get your timer out. You're going to do 30-second intervals. All right. So you can hold on to that first. Now, to do this game, I need 2 more things before I describe what this game is. I need some occupations. So start yelling out occupations. Mundane, normal ones, crazy occupations. Falconer, what? Window washer, what else? Cashier. Zookeeper, all right. So let's see. I like falconer and window washer. Those are the first couple I heard. Those sound pretty good. All right. So we're going to play a game called Old Job, New Job. Who would like to be the falconer? Brian?
I don't know what that is, but sure.
Oh, sure you do. You're an improviser. Improvisers know everything about everything. All right. So you're the falconer, and you will be the window washer, Venu. All right. So here's how this game works. I'm going to start by talking for 30 seconds about my new job. I'm a tester. And all I'm going to do is tell you how I test, tell you a little bit about the job of testing. Now, when I get down to about 25 seconds, Brian, Austin, I want you to wave at me and say, hey, you're getting towards the end, all right? At that point, I'll turn to you, and all you're going to do, Brian, is tell people about falconing, being a falconer, all right? And you know everything there is about. Are you actually a falconer?
Yes, actually.
Okay, so he already knows everything about this. Just tell a little bit about the job, how it is to be a falconer, the things that you do. And after that, you'll hand it back to me for 30 seconds, then back to Vinu. You'll talk about window washing for 30 seconds, and finally back to me. Making sense? Any questions? No questions. All right, let's play some old job, new job. You got the timer ready? All right. So let me tell you about my new job. I'm a software tester. Now, sometimes when I approach testing, I don't even look at the requirements initially. Sometimes they're provided to me, sometimes they're vague or not. But regardless, I put them aside, and sometimes I just poke around in the application, and I prod, and I explore, and I pretend that I'm a user encountering the application for the first time. And I see how it makes me feel emotionally, and I see how it flows and functions. And I take all this, and I write down my observations. And then maybe afterwards, I start to look at the requirements. And this is part of how I test. But tell me about your job as a falconer.
It's a lot about the love of the animal, to be honest. You really have to love the avian variety, all the different types of birds, but in particular, the falcon. Mm-hmm. Because the falcon, it is a majestic, beautiful beast. Eyes that can see like a hawk, but not a hawk because it's a falcon.
It's a falcon.
Of course. Quick speeds, diving, and all sorts of...
Yeah, I didn't tell you guys this before. It's not one of my labels. I was also a falconer. I was a long time ago, and I didn't think there was going to be any benefit from a falconer to being a tester, but it turned out the love of animals, being able to identify and love each different type of bird, I was able to translate that to software. As I went from industry to industry and encountered all these different types of software, I realized that I need to love each one of these. It's not just about function and performance and security and all these very dry, non-emotional requirements. I need to love the application and think about it as a user would, because software is about emotion. And yeah, so Vinu, tell me about being a window washer.
Window washer. Window washer is being fun. There are windows here, there are windows there, windows everywhere. I like to wash the windows. I can wash with a soap, I can wash with water, I can be on a big building washing the windows, or I could be just cleaning the windows at home. Mm-hmm. I guess that's it.
You guys won't believe it. Thank you, Vinu. I was a window washer too. I was. That was my old job, and I really didn't think it would have any bearing on being a tester, but it did. Part of the thing was bravery. As a window washer, you have to be very brave and do things that are very scary sometimes. As a tester, I found myself having to be brave sometimes as I brought sometimes difficult, delicate bugs to developers and project managers. I could have just taken the easy route, but I chose to be brave, and that came from my experience as a window washer. Not only that, all these different types of windows, all these different types of applications. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Brian, Austin, and Vinu, give it up. This is Old Job, New Job. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rick. So that was Old Job, New Job. A fun, hopefully funny, way to show that different skills and attributes can be transferred from one thing to another. Just like Steve Jobs had no idea how calligraphy would impact his life later, I had no idea how falconing and window washing was going to affect me as a tester. You can find value in surprising, unexpected areas if you just look. Now, I'm going to talk a little bit more. I think you've already seen the slides, so the big reveal's already given up. One of my favorite pop culture examples of transferable skills comes from a movie called Karate Kid. Now, I'm talking about this Karate Kid. I look out and I see some young faces, so I'm not talking about this not this Karate Kid. Okay, not the next Karate Kid, not this one, not Dre Parker in the reboot. I'm talking about the original Ralph Macchio as Daniel LaRusso. Now, if you have not seen the movie, there's a couple scenes in it that I'd like to describe because I think they exemplify transferable skills rather well. In the movie, poor Daniel is getting beat up by thugs, and he goes to Mr. Miyagi, and he says, Mr. Miyagi, can you please teach me karate? I'm getting beat up. I don't want to get beat up anymore. And Mr. Miyagi thinks about it. He says, sure, stop by tomorrow, and we'll talk about, I'll start teaching you karate. So Daniel shows up the next day at Mr. Miyagi's house, and he starts sanding the floor. Mr. Miyagi says, get down there and sand my deck. And so Daniel has to sand this entire huge deck, and he spends the entire day sanding. Mr. Miyagi says, great job, come back tomorrow, and we'll continue your training. He comes back the next day, and Mr. Miyagi sets him about painting his fence. And he has a fence that goes all the way around his property, and poor Daniel spends the entire day painting and painting this fence. And he goes home, and Mr. Miyagi says, come back the next day, and this is killing me. He comes back the next day, and he says, all right, now wax the car, wax on, wax off. And Daniel is waxing on and waxing off. And he gets frustrated, and he says, Mr. Miyagi, I asked you to teach me karate. You're not teaching me karate at all. And then in one of the most famous key scenes of the movie, Mr. Miyagi shows that Daniel has, in fact, been learning karate all along. All the actions of sanding the floor and waxing the car and painting the fence, these are the fundamental movements in karate. And it comes down to a key scene where Mr. Miyagi tries to strike Daniel, and he does wax off, and he blocks his strike. This is a silly pop culture way that I'm reminded about transferable skills, just like calligraphy, just like falconing, just like sanding a floor. You never know how you might learn from others and be able to connect dots in unexpected ways. So, I encourage you, when you're labeling yourself, you're thinking about your different teeth, put things that you might not think are important because they might have value. This is Kevin O'Leary from Shark Tank or Dragon's Den, depending on where you live. He has a quote, says, the more skills I put in my toolbox, the greater my chances of success. He talks about going to business school at the urging of his stepfather, and the value he got wasn't really all the business skills that he learned. It was about networking and social skills and all these different things that he thought were unimportant that it turns out were very important. You keep adding tools to your belt, adding teeth to your comb, making longer the short teeth. This is how you can better your chances of success. So what? So what does all this mean? Rediscover who you are. Identify who you are right now. Visualize it. Maybe use the comb as a metaphor to think about who you are and think, where do you have long teeth and short teeth? Identify who you can be. Connect the dots backwards. If you can, try and predict forwards. How might this thing be useful for me in a way that I don't even expect? Learn from others. Learn from Mr. Miyagi and learn from yourself. Things that you already are, things that you already do. How can they be beneficial? All right, back to the hello I'm. All of you should have a second badge on your table. What I'd like you to do now is write down 3 things. An attribute, something that you are. Doggone it. Click, 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 click. And he's painting and he's waxing. See, in improv, if this wasn't improv, I'd be freaking out. But in improv, everything goes wrong and it's okay. All right, so I want you to write down an attribute, some piece of knowledge, something that you know, and some skill, something that you can do. And it can have nothing to do with your professional life, nothing to do with your work, nothing to do with your company. I want you to write down these 3 things. I want you to turn to your neighbor. I want you to introduce yourself by name. And then I want you to tell them about your attribute, your knowledge, your skill. And then return the favor. The other person will introduce back. I'm going to give you 3 minutes to do this. And while you do that, please enjoy All Kinds of Kinds by Miranda Lambert. So 3 minutes to think about an attribute, a piece of knowledge, and a skill, and share it with your neighbor. All right. Thank you, Miranda, for that serenade. So, hello, I'm Insight. Was there any insight, any discoveries, anything interesting that anyone learned during this process? Back there, yes. Yes, 3 minutes is not nearly sufficient enough. I've heard that quite a bit. These are very difficult to think about who you are when you're not talking about your title and your profession. Thinking about who you are as a person, what things do you know, and what things can you do. With a little bit of thought, sometimes you discover things about yourself you didn't know, but it can be difficult. Any other insight, discoveries? Anybody want to share? Anyone learn something about your neighbor that you didn't know, a connection that you didn't have before? Yes? Back there? Sleeping for a long time? Was that your skill? Yeah. I'm envious of that skill. That's almost a superpower, I think. Great. So I like this exercise. I think it's important for us to sometimes introspect, look inward, think about who we are. What labels do we put on ourselves? What labels do others put on us? And what does that mean about us? The summary slide, consider the labels that we're using to label others, to label ourselves. What does that mean about who we are? Use anxiety. Anxiety is about uncertainty. The thing that you are worried about and anxious about, it may happen, but it also might not happen. And use this simultaneous dread and desire to drive you to do things that you might not have done before. Go to or ask to go to that design meeting. Say, well, I'm just a tester. What value can I do? I'm anxious about going to this design meeting. What can I bring to it? Try it. Do it. I bet you have value that you don't even realize. It's never too late to label yourself, to start redefining who you are, but don't wait. Even though it's too late, don't put it off. Identify who you are right now, and if it helps, use a metaphor, a visual model like the comb, so you can think about which teeth are long and which teeth are short. And once you've identified those short teeth, think how you can make them longer. Which of your long teeth can you transfer knowledge, attributes, and skills over to learn from yourself? Or learn from others. Connect the dots looking backwards to things that you are, or learn from others like Mr. Miyagi. And learn how you can take attributes, knowledge, and skills from others and increase the length of your teeth in your comb. Remember to unjust yourself. Watch out for that label. Rediscover who you are. Remember, you are more than that. So thank you very, very much. My name's Damian Synadinos. I'm a speaker with Ineffable Solutions. Thank you.
All right. We got time for just a couple of questions. Anybody have a question you want to ask?
It's terribly sticky. Yes, I should.
Yes.
So Damian, obviously you're a great speaker, and
Thank you.
I don't think you flubbed once. I was just curious, is this something that you learned technically from your improv classes, or is this something that you already known you had the skill?
I will talk a little bit about that, another shameless plug, in Talking About Talking tomorrow. However, to answer your question briefly, I like to think that all of us have a lifetime of experience in speaking. It's about refining those skills. Now, certainly my training in improvisation, as a mentor, I often recommend to my mentees that they take a 101 level introductory improv class. And they say, oh, I don't want to perform on stage. I don't want to go to a comedy club. It's not about that. It's about learning principles and skills and techniques that are useful on stage as well as in your job, in your marriage, in your life. So I also think that improv has prepared me to be a public speaker as well.
Thanks.
Any more?
That's it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your time. Enjoy the conference. I'm no longer self-indulgent.
No more self-indulgence.
Thanks for watching this STPCon keynote recording. Please share this recording on Facebook or Twitter with hashtag STPCon. Learn more about the Software Test Professionals Conference and join us in the Washington, D.C. metro area from October 22nd through 25th by visiting stpcon.com.